national focal points, representative of the SADC Secretariat, as well as the African Union Commission, representatives of civil society organizations, the senior management of our department, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and dear ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to begin by warmly welcoming you to the Interregional Focal Points Network meeting. I especially wish to welcome the new focal points: ASEAN, Lebanon, Cote d'Ivoire, Mongolia, and Lesotho. We're really thrilled that you are here, and we are pleased that you've granted us the honor to be co-hosting this meeting along with our partner Switzerland, as we serve together as co-chairs of the Women, Peace and Security Focal Points Network. Switzerland and South Africa have a joint ambition to advance the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda through identifying innovative and transformative strategies. Our meeting today is convened under the theme, Taking Practical Action to Implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda through interregional cooperation. And as the program director has said, it is important that our action plans are matched by concrete, practical outcomes. So it would be wonderful if you emerge from this meeting with one or two concrete actions that we would all be required to undertake. And then when next we meet, we would be able to carry out an assessment. Were we able to meet those goals? Or in some of our jurisdictions, did we find a particular difficulty? What was that difficulty? And how can we collectively assist in overcoming it? I would really love to see the strengthening of collaboration between network members in order to enable the sharing of experiences and ideas across the regions. The theme of our meeting embodies the idea of cooperation between states, between regions, and international organizations, and of course, can never leave out our robust civil society organs. All of us working together can come up with innovative ideas. The meeting today will provide an opportunity for South-South learning, as well as the exchange of lessons learned and experiences that have rendered some countries successful and some less successful, as our own country is. Building on the priorities of full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in peace processes and the protection of women's rights, this meeting is going to share actions and elaborate strategies. All of these would be drawn from the 4th capital level meeting, which was held in Geneva. And it is all intended to show that we are serious about the Women, Peace and Security agenda. I should just report that in October, South Africa, as many of you know, hosted the peace talks between the federal government of Ethiopia and the TPLF emanating from the Tigray region. We had agreed that each side would have 7 delegates to the negotiations and a number of support staff. Well, you can imagine our horror when we walked into the negotiation room and neither side had brought a woman to the peace negotiations, despite the well-known impact on women of conflict and war. We did make the point to the colleagues that their delegations of both look extremely weak without women, and that we would advise them in future to change the composition of their delegations. But perhaps we should be sending out a stronger word to the African Union, since it was an African Union-led peace process, that with respect to future delegations, they must ensure that a directive is issued that there has to be representation of women in all such delegations. But it was quite a lesson for us. Well, both our countries, South Africa and Switzerland, have committed to the Generation Equality Forum and its Global Acceleration Plan, which we all adopted with acclaim in Paris in July 2021, with us agreeing as South Africa to co-lead the Action Coalition Working Group on Economic Justice and Rights. I've become a little concerned that we're not hearing much any longer about the Generation Equality Forum, which was a forum that women attached a great deal of importance to. And I believe we need to look at why there appears to be this quiet about it, because at its inception, it appeared to serve as a very dynamic catalyst for universal action by women. So I do think we need perhaps to conceive of a revival so that we don't have a sort of Beijing plus 20 where we're looking back somewhat with concern. We should ensure that what began as an excellent platform is really lifted up and continues to execute the role we anticipated. The forum has placed strong emphasis on the mainstreaming of the needs and rights of women and girls in conflict and humanitarian situations through its compact on women, peace, and security, as well as humanitarian action. It has seen this link, this integration between the objectives of the focal point and the forum as critical to ensuring a holistic approach to the empowerment of women and girls, as well as to the achievement of gender equality. I wonder whether some of our partners gathered here, who play very important roles in humanitarian relief actions, whether they take an interest in ensuring that women are also part of providing humanitarian relief, and that NGOs led by women play a critical role in supporting agencies in interfacing with communities as humanitarian relief is provided. We are really, I think, pleased, although a little concerned, but pleased that at least 50% of the UN member states and territories have adopted the Women, Peace and Security National Action Plan, despite the fact that we have very serious concerns about human security and the reversal of women's human rights. And we're seeing this reversal from day to day in various parliaments across the world. And this should worry us. Our meeting should hopefully become a rallying call for the rest of the world to adopt impact-driven national action plans. They will be able to draw on the rich lessons learned by the countries which have already developed them, while promoting local and national capacity, building initiatives, getting resources, and putting in place mechanisms for monitoring and evaluation, as well as for peer review of the already adopted national action plans. As I've said, civil society has been critical in driving the Women, Peace and Security agenda through advocating for the development and implementation of NAPs in various parts of the world. Formalizing the engagement and participation of NGOs and linking official negotiations with civil society peace initiatives would further strengthen the participation of women in peace processes and could assist in reducing gender-based violence in conflict. A strong focus of the meeting will be on providing a platform for civil society and regional communities to enter into dialogue, to share and to offer recommendations to further the WPS agenda to address key challenges. The meeting will also focus on the role of local and regional women mediator networks in preventing the escalation of conflicts and crises and ensuring women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in ongoing peace processes. I'm really thrilled that in the last few years, other networks have been established to accelerate this agenda. We are co-chairing the WS Focal Points Network of the Group of Friends of the African Women Leaders Network, or AWLN. It's a network of women peace builders with 30 chapters. They galvanize support and engage in advocacy efforts. The Women Leaders Network also operationalizes Resolution 1325, which has given life to the work we're all doing. And it does this by working locally and regionally, by focusing on local level initiatives through the network local chapters. So there's a great deal of work on the ground that we can build on. Important platforms such as these help to galvanize support and engage in critical advocacy that can help advance a women, peace, and security agenda. We also hope the Women Leaders Network would provide to this and other meetings the sharing of experiences and also conduct fact-finding missions through solidarity field missions, such as, for example, to conflict areas, the north of Mozambique, as well as Mali. We fully support the continuous attention paid to this agenda. We believe this demonstrates that the United Nations and its member states have a sustained commitment to supporting gender equality, women's empowerment, women's leadership, and ways of advancing women's full, equal, meaningful, and effective participation in peace processes and in post-conflict resolution. Of course, the Security Council has been of great assistance in advancing the women, peace, and security agenda. But this support has not translated to implementation nor to concrete deliverables at the grassroots level. And of course, you all know our views about the fact that we believe the UN Security Council is in need of very urgent reform, particularly given the failings illustrated by the conflicts underway in the globe at present. The UN Secretary General's latest report of September 2022 on the Women, Peace and Security Agenda recognized both the progress registered but also noted the persistent challenges. It has become clear that an increase in violent conflicts, growing activity by terrorist and armed groups on the continent, military coups, and unconstitutional changes of government have had a negative impact on the key objectives of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. Women in conflict-affected areas are marginalized and have limited access to and control of productive and equal economic opportunity resources. And it is men who are most usually in control at the point of conflict. Therefore, we must ensure always that this agenda is linked to the promotion of women's economic empowerment. It is through the protection of civil, political, and economic rights of women that they will have an equal and meaningful participation in public life and in decision-making bodies, particularly in issues of insecurity that are the business of this meeting. We must also ensure that we protect women's sexual and reproductive health and rights. Of course, it is our view that women's organizations and networks are absolutely imperative to foster solidarity, to foster cooperation, to foster coordination. When women protest in Afghanistan, women should protest in South Africa, in Sweden, in Uganda, and in Tanzania. We are reminded of the activities of our own South African Women in Dialogue, which since it began in 2003 has shared the experiences of South African women in peace negotiations and peace building with various conflict-affected countries on the continent, such as the DRC, Burundi, and Sudan, amongst many others. We also recognize the important role of the Mana River Women's Peace Network, or MAWOPNet, in contributing toward peace in that region, an area that was once overrun by armed groups. We believe that these are some of the best practices which can be emulated in building resilience and support for women in regions plagued by armed groups. Similarly, we have the Network of African Women in Conflict Prevention and Mediation, officially known as FemWise. DIRCO, there's something wrong with your sound system. South Africa also has a chapter of FemWise Africa. FemWise Africa has deployed its members on short and long-term assignments to support various conflict prevention and mediation efforts. They've also been supported by AU liaison officers, as well as electoral and peace-building missions. We attach priority to the continuous skilling, training, and capacity building of women and youth so that they can meaningfully participate in peace processes. South Africa continues to contribute to training and capacity building for women in these processes within the continent and at local level in our own country. We provide annual youth and women's training programs on conflict resolution, mediation, and negotiation, and we offer this to countries on the continent as well. Some of our trainees are now members of peace-building initiatives in their own countries. We hope in future that we will be able to empower some of the trainees to develop practical experience in all three tracks of mediation and conflict resolution. We've also hosted the Gertrude Shope Annual Dialogue Forum based on the anti-apartheid peace-building efforts of Mama Gertrude Shope, a South African leader. The forum aims to empower women to support peace and stability initiatives in their communities. This forum has also culminated in the establishment of a women's peace table focusing on women-led peace building, social cohesion, and reconciliation. We believe that these can be building blocks that contribute toward the operationalization of the African Union strategy for gender equality and women's empowerment. Our country has also joined the Compact on Women, Peace, Security, and Humanitarian Action, which calls for the redesign of peace, security, and humanitarian processes to do what I referred to earlier, and that is include women and girls. This compact includes peace builders, refugees, and forcibly displaced persons. Committing to these actions will, we believe, solidify the foundation that has already been laid by President Ramaphosa when he led South Africa's active participation in the negotiations for the Global Acceleration Plan of the Economic Justice and Rights Action Coalition of the Generation Equality Forum, which has a clear action plan to advance economic justice. So as you begin your deliberations, I really want to wish you fruitful exchanges. You have an amazing platform as a foundation on which to build. And I'm really hopeful that the discussions during the meeting will serve to enhance all our cooperation in this important space and create pathways for more women to be included in mediation and in conflict resolution processes. I do think that the time may come when we begin to discuss how we carry out investigations or programs that help us to understand more clearly the psyche of men who begin conflict, the underlying reasons for the conflicts that we see in many parts of our continent, and also how we would match this agenda of women, peace and security with the agenda of anti-corruption and good governance and democracy. Because I think these three elements are a key part of the underlying rationale for the problems that many of our countries experience. So I'm really, really excited to see you here. I wish you well in your deliberations. And I see that you are achieving success because you have more than 10 men in the room. This is quite amazing. And I congratulate you for that, because the more men we can convert, the greater the possibility of achieving success. Thank you very much, and success.
It's my great pleasure to join you today at this meeting of the Women, Peace and Security Focal Points Network. Allow me to congratulate our esteemed co-chair, the Government of South Africa, for bringing the network together in Pretoria for in-depth discussions on the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda through interregional cooperation. For we all share a joint objective, a peaceful future for our societies. Yet, without women, ladies and gentlemen, there is no sustainable peace. The WPS agenda places human security and women's rights at its center. It reflects a modern approach to security and to reality around us, in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, the Sahel, or Ukraine, to name but a few examples, as we all know. Women are very often on the front line of building peace in their communities. They are currently engaged in conflict prevention and resolution, humanitarian aid and reconstruction. In many countries, they are at the forefront of movements against authoritarian regimes and refuse to accept political proposals that do not guarantee their rights. Take the example of Iran, as we all know. And yet, the recognition of women's roles in the prevention and resolution of conflicts does often not go beyond the WPS agenda. There is a widening gap between, on one hand, the normative framework and governmental commitments, and, on the other hand, their implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Focal Points Network is an indispensable instrument at our disposal to bridge the gap. Throughout this co-chairship year with South Africa, and supported by the Troika members Canada, Uruguay and UN Women as the network secretariat, we in the Swiss government were inspired by the substantive discussions that resulted in concrete recommendations that can strengthen our actions. We firmly believe that it is through interregional cooperation in the network, manifest in our mutual learning, exchange of good practices of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Switzerland is also delighted that the network keeps growing. This year, we welcome ASEAN, Lebanon Côte d'Ivoire, Mongolia, and Lesotho, who joined us as new members. The network also enables us to listen to the experiences and proposals of civil society organizations and integrate these in our efforts. In Switzerland, we have a close cooperation with our civil society for the development and implementation of our National Action Plan. We appreciate that in the course of this year, the network has provided the opportunity to strengthen connections between Swiss and South African civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the difficulties and challenges in translating the agenda into practice, Switzerland is encouraged by the dedication and hard work of the member states and organizations to find solutions. It has already led to a shift of paradigm. We are not asking ourselves anymore why women, peace and security are inextricably linked. We have moved to the how. Switzerland remains deeply committed to do its part. Allow me to recall 3 areas in which my country is engaged in, including as a member of the Security Council from the next year on. Firstly, Switzerland wants to contribute to an effective multilateralism. In the Council, we will pursue a systematic and action-oriented approach. In the context of increasing contestation of gender equality and the shrinking space for civil society, there is a need to reaffirm the collective commitment to women working for peace, human rights, and more tolerant societies. We will therefore seek to integrate the Women, Peace and Security agenda in all contexts on the Council's agenda. Secondly, dear ladies and gentlemen, the participation of women in peace processes is a key element in our foreign policy and was also a priority at the network's capital level meeting in Geneva. There can be no sustainable peace if women are not at the table. Therefore, Switzerland will continue to support the creation of networks of women mediators and peace builders. We do this at home, where we have established the Swiss Women in Peace Process Network. We also do this within the framework of bilateral cooperation, as for example in Lebanon, where we support networking efforts between women from different political backgrounds. And we do this in partnership with regional organizations such as the OSCE. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, peace processes go beyond the formal negotiation table. Women's organizations and civil society are often engaged in preventive activities. They also respond to emerging crises. While doing so at great risk, they are often sidelined from formal negotiations. Switzerland supports women's organizations to contribute to ongoing processes, for example in Nepal, Colombia, and the Philippines. At the same time, there is a need to further advance the design of inclusive peace processes that value such contributions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are convinced that through cooperation and dialogue, we can contribute to our joint objective and reinforce the foundations for an inclusive and sustainable peace. I wish us all impactful discussions and thank you for your commitment. Thank you so much.
I love the sentiments that we're hearing today. You know, I always say that we're never going to achieve gender equality without men. It's impossible. But often it's just women talking to each other about gender equality. And it's the same for women, peace and security. This will never work without men, without engaging men. And so I very much appreciate the sentiments expressed this morning. I love that we're all talking about generation equality. And Minister, Your Excellency, I love that every single engagement we have together, you put this back on the table. I hear you, and I really look forward to taking this forward together. It's our priority, our shared agenda. So thank you for this. Today's an amazing day. Today's the kind of day where coming in, you know, we meet people that we haven't seen for months or years. We meet people doing the most extraordinary work all over the world. And today I'm really excited to welcome you all here to this beautiful meeting on behalf of UN Women. Let me put my glasses on. Today we celebrate the power of partnerships and collaboration across the globe. This is the second time the Women, Peace and Security Focal Points Network has met in Africa. Congratulations to South Africa and to Switzerland as they come to the end of their term as 2022 co-chairs of the Women, Peace and Security Focal Points Network. Bravo for the work you've done and for your leadership. I think, yes, round of applause. Well deserved. I thank the co-chairs for their stellar leadership to move the global Women, Peace and Security agenda forward and for bringing us all together here in South Africa for this inter-regional meeting. Excuse me. The success of this year has also been made possible by the Troika members of the network, Canada and Uruguay. You were first to start the new model of co-chairship. You and previous chairs, Spain, Germany and Namibia, have paved the way for great friendships and collaboration across regions. To reach our common goal in service of women and girls in conflict and crisis contexts and sustainable peace. There cannot be a greater cause. And I would like to warmly acknowledge the delegates from the 43 countries represented here in this room today. 43 countries, that's a beautiful thing for us to come together. For some of you, the process to get here to this room today has not been an easy one. And I want to recognise and appreciate your dedication and commitment to turn up in this space. On behalf of UN Women, I welcome you. UN Women proudly serves as a secretariat to the network's 95 members, and I extend a warm welcome to the 5 new members who've joined the network this year. UN Women is committed to work alongside members of the network to facilitate the sharing of best practices and lessons learned on women, peace and security, and to continue to provide technical expertise from our headquarters in New York, our regional and our country offices around the world. And today I'm delighted to be joined by my UN Women colleagues who've travelled here from New York to serve as the Secretariat. You're welcome in South Africa. From their role in the development and implementation of Women, Peace and Security National Action Plans to sustained advocacy to ensure accountability for the Women, Peace and Security agenda, the critical importance of civil society cannot be overstated. This acknowledgement is written into the guidelines of this network, and the network embodies this principle by actively including civil society in all of its meetings, its deliberations and recommendations. Our civil society sisters and brothers, I welcome you. And I congratulate Accord and DIRCO for their partnership in organising such a great civil society pre-consultation meeting which we held in this room yesterday for civil society organisations from the SADC region. With the support of our development partner Norway, UN Women here in South Africa, in collaboration with DPPO, we are committing to support SADC in the establishment of the SADC Women Mediators Network. It's also something we discussed with civil society yesterday. And I'm really excited to see this initiative moving forward. Around the world, women's rights and freedoms are being deliberately targeted. In 2022, there were increased attacks on women human rights defenders. And we've heard the demands of women in Africa and from around the world who are facing conflicts and crises. And I love, Minister, when you said when women protest in Afghanistan, women need to protest here in South Africa. We're in this together. I very much agree. We've heard the demands of women from Ukraine, from Iran, and from Afghanistan, where I have spent the last 4 years before I moved here to South Africa. We've heard these demands from women for their protection, for their leadership and participation. And our sisters, we stand with you in solidarity. This room stands with you for women truly are the way to peace. And in our discussions and our deliberations today and tomorrow, it's critical that we bring those voices into the room, including of people who couldn't join us physically in this space. 22 years after the adoption of Resolution 1325, the Women, Peace and Security normative framework remains as robust as it was on day one. We now have 105 states and territories with national action plans on women, peace and security, and over 190 signatories to the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact. Here in Southern Africa, UN Women are committed to working with government, SADC and our CSO partners to support the further development and rollout of NAPs across the region. And South Africa is such an excellent example to other parts of the SADC region that we certainly leverage in encouraging the development of action plans where we don't have them yet. As we meet over these 2 days to build on the recommendations from the Geneva meeting convened in May, we welcome this meeting's theme, which goes beyond partnering for change to taking practical action to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda through inter-regional cooperation. So that's all of you from 43 countries. For it will take more action from all of us to realise the changes that we wish to see in our world. And yes, it will certainly take women and men working together. I thank you.